Hi, everybody. I'm back. I was gone for like 5 minutes. Whee! Hey, everybody. Yeah, I was gone for like 5 minutes and I was going to record this video and just put it out as a normal video, but I've actually been enjoying a little bit of the chat. And, as the inspiration to talk about these things is up, I thought, why don't I just start a live and talk about it? So that's what we're going to do in this video. I want to talk about the trends that I see for 2026 and moving beyond, but particularly getting louder in 2026 with astrology, AI, this question of what's real. I want to share my thoughts because I love to talk about the astrology portion, and we will, and we do here all the time, right? Um, but I love talking about culture and changes, and I love to see how people move and change and how systems shape behavior and how culture is often changing, like it gets warmed up to a change long before it actually takes it on. Now, I just got the email from Stephen Forrest today talking about, his astrology and AI take, which I thought was absolutely brilliant because I'm like Stephen and I'm like many other people. I am not coming at this topic or approaching it because I know what's going to happen or because I'm not an AI developer. I'm not even really a futurist. I'm not any of those things. I don't know exactly what is going to happen, and I'm not claiming to know what's going to happen. I'm not even a really strong tech person. I think I am until somebody who's really a strong tech person comes along, and then I'm like, oh my God. But I am an astrologer, and astrology has honed this skill that I have for watching patterns and being curious, and astrology has honed that for me. And my curiosity just has always extended outside of just looking at the astrological chart. I've got Uranus at the IC, Mercury up high, and Gemini at the midheaven, right? Business, technology, human psychology. These are things that all absolutely fascinate the hell out of me. Now, another reason I am doing this video is because there's a trend that I think is going to pop back up. I think it's coming back around because it's active in my life. I live my life mostly offline on purpose, right? Now, that doesn't mean that I reject technology. In fact, I'm going to share with you how much I don't. And it doesn't mean that I'm disconnected from the world. It means for me, particularly in this last few years doing that Venusian work, having to come home, I am absolutely intentional about how much stimulation I allow into my nervous system. I am absolutely intentional in how I am spending my attention, and that already takes work because I have my own set of distractions and delusions that I like. But more than that, because of how things are going to change, I feel like it is masterfully important how I build and behave in my relationships. And living this way, not having cortisol up the back of my neck and my back and my spine and being around other people who are doing the same thing has made me notice it's that my intuition and my spidey senses are tapped in. It's made me notice more quickly changes that are happening and starting to creep in, particularly with my fellows around me, right? And even being an astrologer, feeling these changes in conversation, seeing the exhaustion levels, seeing how people are speaking about their work or what words that are speaking astrology are coming out of their mouth, their creativity, their sense of meaning, all of these things are the other reason I am making this video because truly over the last year, especially, I'm a believer that I don't think that artificial intelligence is just a tool that people are going to use. I think that it is going to be something that is so heavily important for people to orient themselves around and that they already are, whether they are realizing it or not. I mean, it's shaping how people create, how they communicate, how they learn, even how they decide what is real to them. Now, if you haven't watched my other video where I talked about how quick the fire and air is going to be working on us in the mental space, I would suggest you check that out because it'll make some of this make a lot of sense as well. So, that is why in this video and on my blog, I've been talking about astrology and AI together so that we can continue to explore these trends. And I love going to those AI talks. I love listening to what people have to say, and then I love seeing the impact in the astro world. So I will continue to be studying those things. And it's not because I think that astrology needs to compete with technology or that it will per se, but because astrology has something essential to offer as the pace of the world begins to pick up and like kind of outstrip the capacity of the human nervous system. This is also the reason I continue to talk about and encourage and invite into the Venus Reset program, not because of the work of the aesthetics, but those come with it. Those are Venusian principles. But it is about regulation, it's about embodiment, it's about value, and it is about relationships, particularly when the technology is accelerating. So let's jump in, and I just want to talk about some things that I see coming in 2026, particularly around AI. And the first trend that I see coming out is a split. I actually think that the first thing that we're really going to see is a split, right? Because there is going to be this widening split in how people relate and what they believe about artificial intelligence. And this divide is not, it's not clearly like generational or political or professional. It's deeply psychological, I think, which is interesting if we're going into a fire and air year where we know that the psychological and the mental terrain is where we're really going to work. Now, some people are increasingly comfortable with AI, the early adopters, right? And the experience to them feels like a natural extension of tools that human can use and have always used to increase some kind of efficiency and to expand the possibility, right? For them, AI will feel useful, exciting, inevitable, worth the risks, right? That's going to be, I think, one mind frame that we really see on the table. And at the same time, we're going to see another group of people who experience something very different. They're going to understand the tools, or maybe not, but they may understand the tools perfectly well, but something about them will feel so destabilizing, right? They're going to notice changes in their what's the word? Attention span, their creativity, their sense of self. They may feel overwhelmed. They're going to feel flattened and afraid, disconnected maybe in some way, and feel that resistance. And this is not resistance that I think is rooted in the ignorance of the tool and the tools that are available, right? For them, it's going to be more of, I think, a story of the nervous system response to the speed, to the stimulation, to what it kicks up in them as the resistance is kind of coming on. Now, what I think matters here is that the split is not necessarily about what's right, or who's wrong. I think it's going to be about how do people orient to this, right? And this is going to be, I think, a pretty big split. Some people are not going to want to see that AI at all. Some people are going to be comfortable with embracing it. Some nervous systems adapt more easily to environments that reward the kind of output and acceleration that I think we're going to be able to experience, while others require more of that slowness. There needs to be more texture, there needs to be more relational feedback in order to even stay grounded. So as AI becomes more embedded in our daily life, as if that's possible, but it is, I think the difference will also become more visible as we're watching the people on the different sides of this split kind of iron that out. But as we're traveling here in 2026, I do think that this is going to be a trend and this is going to be a situation, and we're not going to be able to just kind of politely ignore it. It will show up. It's going to show up at work. It's going to show up in creative spaces. It's going to show up in education, healthcare, spiritual spaces, astrologers, teachers. Listen, that's already going on. There is a split happening there for sure. Different guides or things that you're interested in are going to be increasingly holding space and need to be able to hold space for people who feel deeply polarized in their relationship to AI. And navigating that tension for us this year, I think it can be done. I think it can be done with care. And I think it will become a part of the work of daily living for all of us. Okay, another trend that I see coming up, and again, I'm an astrologer on the internet who loves to study these things. I'm not running some like AI company, so I don't actually know, but this is what I think is going to come. But another trend I see is reality. Oh, and this is going to be, I think, so big. Reality becoming a personal decision, right? Here's what I mean. For some people, if something evokes emotion or it solves a problem or it produces some kind of desired outcome, it's real. It's real enough, right? The origin of the content or maybe even context is going to matter less than the experience that it produces or maybe that it creates is a better word, right? For others, reality is going to be this inseparable space between being present, touchable, tangible, comes from lived human experience. And without those elements being a piece of this, something may look really concerning and not be necessarily considered real. Real is going to be a word this year that I think we are going to be working with for sure. Right now, the difference in the perception here, I think, creates a new kind of fragmentation uh, that we're going to experience. I think this has happened before in the world for sure. I'm not sure that all of us were alive for that, right? I think the closest thing I can even really think of is when the internet was coming in and people were like, I don't know if it's going to be that big of a thing, or cell phones were coming in and people are like, I don't know if it's going to be that big of a thing. And yet here we are, right? So it has happened and we have been able to adapt. But the fact is, yet again, we're going to see what is real. What can the nervous system, what can the psychology of a person handle? Because two people are going to be able to encounter the same AI generated image, a piece of writing, a video, an audiobook, a voice, and walk away with two entirely different internal responses to that particular experience. One is going to feel more inspired and impressed and ready to go. And the other may feel really disturbed, really disconnected, and really unsettled. And this is just not going to be, I think, simply a matter of preference. I think that this is going to, first of all, have all of us questioning how do we define real? How do we organize trust? How do we organize intimacy? How do we organize meaning? Right? And this really will be a question for each of us to encounter as we go along. Astrology has always lived in the space between objective reality and subjective experience. So astrology's already had that going for us for a long time, and it does not claim that any one symbol actually causes an event, but that it reflects cycles of humans' behavior that we can recognize within patterns and within ourselves. So in a world where reality feels increasingly constructed, I think that a part of this, what is real, is where astrology is going to be able to help people reconnect with their own internal compass to say, what is real for me? Because it can offer some language for resonance. It can offer some language for dissonance that can help with timing depending on the speed of what's needing to be learned at that particular section of the journey. So again, I hope you come and do Venus reset work with me because it's where we're going to restore your ability to come back into your own being, your own body, your own pleasure, your own truth, and your own embodiment and empowerment, right? Okay. Now, alongside of this, yes, brilliant. I see some of you in the chat. These are, yeah, there's concerns. There's definitely going to be concerns. So, okay, along with this psychological split and this what is real split, which I think is again also quite psychological. I think that another powerful trend we're going to see is one that I was talking about earlier in the video, and it's going to be getting offline. People are going to want to spend more time living life offline and learning in offline spaces. And it's not that I think that this is necessarily really loud and really pronounced, because, I had somebody ask me a year ago how I deal with being online all the time. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not online all of the time. I'm not online half the time, right? I do what I need to do. I am tending to that, but I spend most of my time offline and you wouldn't know because it's not loud. And I think that's what we're going to see. Not loud, not performative. There's no real ideology behind it except for people wanting to take care of themselves. So I don't want to frame this as anything that maybe people are going to be moving offline because they're absolutely anti-technology. That could help as well, but that's not necessarily the trend I'm talking about. Instead, I think it's going to show up in people coming back home and making those small intentional choices to care for themselves, to care for their relationships, to go, I got to be over here in this particular dynamic, because people are going to want to seek some experience this year, experiences that they can feel it in their body, rather than just kind of consuming it passively through screens and things like that. I see this most clearly in 2026 in particular, where how people want to learn again, right? Because there is this growing hunger for more long form study. I know that they're saying, we've got people who don't have the attention span of a sieve, and that's fine, but that's not just what I'm seeing. I'm seeing people want longer form study. I'm seeing them want to get together in-person gatherings and environments where attention is respected, right? People craving that depth, that community, that real conversation, feeling your heartbeat. And it's not nostalgia from the past. That's the thing. That's the thing. I don't think it's this nostalgia from the past. It's I want nervous system and relationship repair in response to the relentless stimulation that we're going to be experiencing this year. And this is something that I'm not just observing like from a distance. I'm participating in it as well. There was a coach that I wanted to work with because there's an area of my business I just don't understand. And so I came to the end of everything I know and I wanted a different experience. And I wanted to work with this one coach. And the only thing that this particular coach offered was a digital program, right? You take the program online, there's no real contact, anything like that. And I said, pass. We went back and forth for a while, and I just flat out said, if I can't work with you in person or you don't have something like that to offer to the journey, just let me know so that I can move on and go find somebody who is working in person, right? And we split, and I got to go move on and find someone who works in person. I think this will continue. I'm also participating in it on the other side. We are currently in the planning stages right now, not like a somewhat planning stage. We are in the active planning stages of bringing a Venus retreat experience to you live. I will be bringing that to you with Georgia Procoria. If you guys don't know her, she's fantastic. She's Italian. She's got this beautiful hair and this accent and this knowledge, right? It's amazing and it's intentional. It's designed to be embodied and in present and relational and slow, and us to feel each other's heartbeats coming out of our bodies, right? So choosing to create something live and be in person, I think is not going to be any kind of accident this year. I think it's going to be a response to a cultural movement that we're living in. As AI accelerates, the counterbalance, I don't think is going to be necessarily needing to withdraw from it, but finding ways to be present as it's happening as well. And astrology, again, when it's practiced with some good integrity, it supports the rhythm of wherever you're at in the season. Maybe it is your season to really be in the AI and in online. And maybe it's going to be a season to teach you where the growth unfolds in your cycle and you need to be stepping a little bit more off the scene because rest matters. And the wisdom of wherever you're at in your own astrological cycle cannot be rushed. And offline spaces and teachers, I think, are going to be able to help you see these truths. I think it's going to be a really cool thing. Okay, another trend that I see, and I was talking about this with someone else, is the rise of the intellectual influencer, right? That is the way I heard it described, and I can't remember who said it. So, whomever actually said this, I'm not stealing your word, but I thought that is brilliant. That is brilliant. And it goes along with this idea that people are wanting to get offline and they want to actually have a conversation. They just don't want the soundbite of it, right? And for a while, for a long while, what was really captivating was the lifestyle influencer, even if the lifestyle influencer that you liked was the one raising chickens in the backyard, doing plants, cooking. You know, we think of that sometimes and can like downplay that we're interested in what we're interested in because it's like, no, I'm not watching the bikini models on Instagram, right? Um, but we were influenced by some kind of lifestyle around us, right? Now, the other thing is the entertainment driven creator. These, I think, are going to take a little bit of a backseat for a minute, although humor always has its place as humans are changing, right? So, these two kinds of people essentially, though, were people who built an audience by showing us things. And now, because people are wanting more explanation, because we're in a year of fire and air where we do want the knowledge and then we want to be able to integrate it, the intellectual influencer is going to be somebody who takes a vast concept and is able to explain that idea, synthesize the information, offer some kind of framework for understanding something that maybe is really has a lot of complexity, right? Like they speak to people who feel overwhelmed, who are searching for some kind of coherence and need the language to bring it together. I think that this is going to be massive. And this rise really does make a lot of sense because we're getting ready to be massively saturated in information but starved for understanding. And we may already be there, right? Depending on, what did your parents teach you in your life? What did your environment teach you about money? What did it teach you about relational dynamics? I watched this doctor online today. And I was really happy that I'm a Virgo rising. I feel like I got an A plus, right? But she is a GYN doctor. And she said, do you know and can you identify your cycle and all of the female parts that are living in your nether region? Can you name all of the parts, particularly as a woman? And I was like, how many people didn't have someone explain that to them? And now, as we do have all of this information available, the intellectual influencer may be the people who are helping to explain even simple, basic personal concepts that we've been starved for really understanding what that means. People are not going to just be watching anymore. What do I buy? What do I watch? That's fine. That may never go away. But they're asking, okay, how do I think about this? How do I break this down? How do I conceptualize this and make this real, whatever that is, for me? How do I orient myself to the situation that's in front of me? So, intellectual influencers, I think, are going to fill that gap brilliantly by being really cool. Well, they're going to be translators essentially, right? Because they're going to be translating that dense material across a lot of different platforms: psychological, philosophical, economics, did I say metaphysical already? I might have said that. Anyways, technological. Hell, I'll be watching the technological people, right? Now, astrology, I think, is two-part. I think astrology might have a complicated relationship with this trend in 2026, actually, because on the one hand, astrology is an intellectual set of techniques and traditions with some philosophical roots and historical roots and things like that, right? And it can live in the head. Astrology can get quite heady. If you've never really been around a group of astrologers or astrology enthusiasts, like really been around a group of us, man, we can just suck all the air up out of your toes and right up into your head. And sometimes that is super fun to get to have that kind of conversation and speak the language of astrology like that, right? But in this case, I think that social media and social spaces can reward a regurgitation of information, right? It rewards people having a lot of charisma, a lot of gusto, a lot of confidence, much more than rigor and training and lineage and any kind of support from other people who are watching how they actually practice astrology. So, in this way, I think that the challenge astrology will find itself in, and it already has, but it will get more and more, is that it creates an environment where astrology is often flattened just into ideas that sound really insightful, but they lack depth, they lack ethical grounding, they lack a somatic connection. And so, as this trend continues to accelerate, astrology will increasingly be in a position where it's going to have to answer some questions. How do we protect? What's the framework to protect astrology? Does astrology need protection? Right? What are the systems of how we're going to productively be able to do that in order to make sure there is that rigor training and lineage out on the table? And this tension, I think, we're going to see it in 2026. Do we go to some kind of national or international certification that is mandatory to become a practicing astrologer? This is going to intensify a conversation for astrologers, and they're going to need to decide how they show up, which is going to be interesting. Now, we've already seen some examples out there of business models and things like that that are coming out of AI designed programs from people who absolutely have not ever been in the astro space at all, not studied, not picked up a book, nothing. And the programs are selling like wildfire. So this is going to be an interesting time. Now, another trend I want to touch on that I think nearly everyone, regardless of how you feel about AI, we're going to watch is going to be medical advancement, really driven by AI. And unlike any of the cultural, ethical, social debates that I think we're going to find ourselves in around AI, this is one where I think whatever AI actually does for us that we find out about, it's going to help us and it's going to soften a bit of the skepticism that we have and move into like a cautious hope of what can be, right? AI is already being used to identify many things in the medical space, probably far more than we're even honestly aware of, but identifying patterns and disease and accelerating the timelines to be able to do that way before a person even knows that they're on their way to some kind of issue. But what feels important to me to name here is that these advancements really truly I think have already been happening, right? And they've been happening quietly. We just don't know about them. Researchers, medical professionals have been working behind the scenes. They've been also continuing to train AI systems on highly specific data sets around cancer, around all kinds of neuro diseases, autoimmune conditions, how to diagnose and run diagnostics in different areas. And these are not like general purpose tools like talking to Chat GPT to whip up your gym plan, which is also very smart. I've lost 5 kilos. So they are focused, they're much more specialized systems designed to help us solve real human medical situations. So I think that as these breakthroughs kind of happen and come up, it will be a point for us that softens something that we know and understand and are willing to accept, certainly public perception around AI, because wouldn't you like to know much earlier on that something is going on inside of your medical being than when you're at a crisis point? From an astrological perspective, I'm not a medical astrologer, so I am curious how the medical side is going to really see this or if they're already seeing it. But I think it does matter because health, embodiment, longevity, they shape every single piece and part of us. So, as these medical shifts are happening and they're going to affect people and how they plan their futures, how they relate to ideas and concepts of aging, how they understand how they want to care for themselves. I'm just really interested to see how it's going to happen because astrology never replaces medicine. That's never been the case. But I think that even as this information comes up, astrology is going to be able to help people emotionally and symbolically, like it does, integrate these changes that are even coming from medicine into the transformation of the world that they are living in. All of these trends for 2026 just remind me that AI is ever present and we can't kind of dance around like it's not. It's here, it's in front of us. Like I said, we have already seen some astrology based programs, some apps, some digital programs, some tools that are being sold by people who I'm telling you, based on what's in it, based on the graphic design, you can tell that they have not been in the position of studying astrology at all, if even a little bit, right? And so it's going to be an offering of astrological language without context, and we're going to be aware of it. I think more and more people, as they see astrologers or they buy these programs or astrologers engage with these programs and apps, are going to call for a lot of accountability. And on one hand, it makes it really hard for the public to distinguish between a studied um, person and just a simulation, right? So that's going to be something that we're going to see the accountability really being called out on. I'm just thinking about this one other thing that I think of. Do you guys remember? Oh my gosh, what was it called? The music app, and they got in a whole Napster. Was it Napster? I'm thinking Napster. I remember that. I think it was Napster, and I had it in college, and it was essentially pirating music, right? That's what was happening. And I think that we're going to continue to see that because astrologers' work will absolutely be lifted, replicated, absorbed into systems without consent. Without consent. That's not theoretical. I'm going to tell you what, you guys know, I finished a book. It's going to be out in May. I just signed a contract with Llewellyn to write a different but second book with them. Very excited. And I experienced this personally with my own book that's not even out yet. It was not written using AI. It was written on regular old Microsoft, right? And it's not even released yet. And on an AI platform, my book was quoted to me. I am grateful that they cited that it was me, but it was quoted to me. How is that possible? That moment made something very clear to me. Astrology is entering the same phase that was similar to Napster at that time, but with speed. right? Digital piracy of other astrologers' work is going to be massive. And because of this, astrologers are going to have to find a way to establish not only I think credibility, but ethics and boundaries like we haven't necessarily needed to do before, not in a gatekeeping kind of way, but in a really transparent one. Training, mentorship, lineage, this all plays into what is the content that we're going to be putting out. Continued study is going to continue to matter, being in front of other people so that we can see how you practice, right? And it's not about creating a hierarchy, it's about creating trust in a world where, for the next year for sure, convincing language is going to be able to be generated instantly. Credibility will come secondary, but the real credibility is going to come from relationships established probably in that offline time in consistency of demonstrating the depth of the practice over time. So, man, ultimately, there's going to be a lot of changes that are coming. Some people have already talked about, we know it. I don't think that I'm having unique observations, but I am concerned with how does this impact the astrology community and how do we work with that? How is that going to impact your world? What would you do if you were writing in your little Dear Diary journal and then an AI source quoted it back to you? What would you do? It's going to be an experience. Ultimately, astrology's role in 2026, I think, is not going to be to resist any of the AI or the technology or to surrender to it either. I think it's going to be to remain rooted in what is the astrological technique. What is it actually? It's a language that is learned through study, through reflection, through lived experience, through heartbeat to heartbeat, sitting with other people. And astrology, I think, will continue to stay relevant. And astrology matters because it helps people stay oriented, stay ethical, stay human in a world where meaning itself is increasingly up for negotiation. Woof! You guys, I have been thinking about this video for 3 days. So I feel good that it is out now. And I'm curious to hear what you have to say. What are some trends that you think that AI is going to bring into the world, but certainly into astrology? Or how do you see um, astrology and AI interacting as we continue on? Not just what have we already seen, but where do you can see it as we also continue um, on here moving through 2026 and beyond. Let's just stay in 2026, honey. We have enough to do. All right, you guys, I love you a ton. Thank you, everybody who showed up in the chat. Thanks for saying hi. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me. And if you are watching back after the live, please let us know in the comment section down below what are your thoughts on this particular topic. At the end, I'm going to put 2 other videos that I have done talking about not only Pluto and Aquarius, but also the big things I think we need to talk about and be aware of as we're moving into the fire and air energies very quickly as we start to get to the end of January. As always, I love you a ton. I look forward to seeing you in the next video that we have together, which will actually be your weekly. And I would love to see each and every one of you in the Venus Reset program. And I can't wait till the Venus Reset retreat is on live. I'll keep you posted.